It has been an incredible journey using the Canon R7 as one of my primary gig cameras over the past year, and it's hard to believe it's been a year since this camera has been released. Now, since I originally purchased the R7 last year, I ended up picking up the Sony FX30 as well, and they complement each other in weird ways because I use the Canon R7 for certain gigs, and then I also use the FX30 for certain gigs. And the reason being is there are some features when it comes to video that the Canon R7 is missing that the Sony FX30 has for not that much more money. So today I want to go over the 5 features I believe that are missing from the Canon R7 that are good for video users, and if added, it would make the R7 an even more video powerhouse. The first on my wish list is going to be the ability to display an external LUT out of the HDMI from the R7. Now, some external monitors do give you the option to load LUTs, but more basic ones do not. And sometimes I like using the basic monitors just because they are so lightweight, and this is a relatively lightweight camera. Being able to have a monitoring LUT isn't just about using an external monitor, but it also has to do with live streaming, which I'll dive into more on my second point. If we were able to send a LUT externally out of the HDMI, we'd be able to use HDMI capture cards and get a much better looking image than we do when just using the normal baked-in color profile on the R7, which is pretty much what I use when it comes to live streaming with the R7, just because as of now, live streaming out of the HDMI has a lot more benefits than live streaming using this as a webcam through the USB-C, which brings us to number 2. In today's world of remote work and video conferencing, using the R7 as a high-quality webcam is becoming increasingly more important. However, one missing feature is the ability to transmit audio over the USB-C when using the R7 as a webcam. By adding this functionality, it would make the R7 a top choice for content creators and professionals, providing superior video and audio quality for virtual meetings, live streams, wherever you may need to use your R7 as a webcam. Now, as I said in point 1, in order to use the R7 as a webcam for my use, I've been having to go out of the HDMI, and because we don't get external monitoring LUTs out of the HDMI, at that point I have to use the non-log modes, the basic colored in profiles, which look okay. Compared to being able to use log, the shadows are more crushed, the highlights clip easier. So I like being able to have that log profile, be able to slap a LUT on there and get going. But I do all of that because we just don't get audio out of the USB-C signal. It would make things so much simpler if we could, because as of now, when I've used the USB-C function on the R7, I have to go grab an external audio interface, pipe that in, I have to set a delay on it so the audio and video match. It just becomes an issue where if I go out of the HDMI, I just have the audio go into the camera and the video and audio are always synced. Third on the list is going to be using an external monitor and being able to view the LCD at the same time while being able to record internally. Now, I know that's a little bit of a mouthful, but if you haven't used the higher end Canon cameras like the R5 and above, the R6, R7, they make you choose one or the other if you want to record internally. So if you want to be able to use your LCD screen, let's say for touch focus, but you also need to send an external HDMI video source out of the camera, well, then you can't record internally at that point. Or if you want to be able to record internally and use an external HDMI monitor, then you're not able to use the internal LCD screen. And when I'm shooting Anamorphic on the R7, which I have some content coming out soon, so definitely stay tuned for that, I absolutely have to use an external monitor because there is no de-squeezing or anything like that with the R7. I get it. It's a mirrorless camera first. It's really meant for a hybrid of photography and video. But when you have a camera that's meant for a hybrid, you would think that you would get more video features because it's supposed to be a hybrid of both photo and video. As much as people want to say this is more a photo camera than video, it can absolutely be a superior video camera to a lot of the other cameras out here on the market due to just the image quality we get in 4K 24. But some of these limitations, like the LCD screen and the external monitor not being able to record internally, I feel like there's software limitations, especially when we're dealing with a crop sensor camera. This is the highest end crop censored mirrorless camera in Canon's lineup. This is like the R5 of the crop censored mirrorless cameras. So you'd think you'd get some of these features Canon, now that we have the R8, which is pretty much the same price as the R7, although now the R7 is $1,400 versus the $1,500 of the R8, it would be nice to get some of these features that weren't with the camera added via firmware. It just makes it a much better video camera. I mean, we have the ability to add XLRs via the smart hot shoe adapter on the top of the camera, and that's video. Make these updates, add them via the firmware. There's some of these that are absolutely easy to add software updates that would make guys like me use the Canon R7 way more than I even do, just because I actually like the image on the R7 more than the FX30. Spoiler alert. Even though I use the FX30 a tad more than the R7, it is absolutely out of usability and not because of image quality. So if I could get these extra features, I'd be using the R7 way more. Now, the fourth item on my wish list is interesting because it's not something we started to see a lot on Canon cameras. We saw it on the R5, and now we saw it on the R6 Mark II, and that is being able to externally output RAW over the HDMI. Now, the R7 gets a downscaled from 7K image in its 4K fine mode, and that's part of the reason why the image quality on this camera is so great. If we could get the ability to get an external signal from this camera, whether it's 6K, maybe a little cropped in, or 7K full sensor, get it out of the HDMI into something like an Atomos Ninja V, that would be absolutely fantastic, and yet another reason to pick up the R7, making it a little bit more pro in the professional video side of things. Number 5, I saved for last because this is going to be a very niche use, but it's something that Sony added to the FX30, and it's something that, like I mentioned earlier, I've been shooting on with the R7 with an external monitor, and it would be the ability to de-squeeze anamorphic lenses in the camera. Now, I'm not saying to give us a de-squeezed image in the file, we can do that ourselves, but being able to monitor on the LCD screen of the R7 a de-squeezed image makes it sometimes where if we're filming some more personal projects, filming for fun, and we want to be shooting in anamorphic, we don't have to bring an external monitor or all these other things. We can just film with the camera itself, even use the viewfinder, which is something I don't have on the FX30, and get some really cool and unique shots without having to bring a bunch of kit with us. And this is something that could be done in the software. I know it's a big ask because Canon doesn't do that on a lot of their cameras, but I think as more people are getting into filmmaking, cameras like the R7 are a valid choice to use for shooting in anamorphic now that it's becoming more affordable. So having these features in the camera would make it a lot more useful for video shooters. What features do you want to see in the Canon R7 if Canon could add them via a firmware update or in the Canon R7 Mark II maybe coming out at some point in the future? Let me know in the comments below. If you have any questions on the R7, things you want me to test, I do plan on keeping the R7 probably for the next few months as I finish some tests with it, but after having it for a year, I'll do a proper year-end review where I'll talk about the situations I have used it, haven't. I'll get a lot more in detail before I most likely end up selling this camera, just because I'm using the FX30 more and more, and because of a lot of the limitations in this video that I mentioned, it kind of prevents me from using the R7 as much as I had planned to when I originally purchased it. So like I said, any questions, anything you want to see in those videos, make sure to ask in the comments below. If you got knowledge and value out of today's video, please make sure to hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell to keep up to date with the latest videos from the channel. And until next time, my name's Geoff Fagien. Thank you for watching, everybody, and I will see you in the next video.